Hey guys, welcome to episode 109 of The Green Life. I'm really excited about today's episode as I've invited on the founders of Nuzest. As you probably heard in previous episodes, Nuzest is actually a protein powder, but also the Good Green Vitality is my favorite green powder, which is a supplement to a healthy diet that I endorse and I'm an affiliate with. So I invited on the founders to find the story behind the products and why they created the brand. It's a very fascinating story. It's about personal journeys and health and discovering how they can support even a diagnosis that can scare many. So today I have them as a sponsor for the podcast, and I really can't wait to dive into this. So without further ado, let's go into it. Welcome, Trevor and Monique. Good morning, Trevor and Monique. Thank you so much for being on The Green Life today. How are you?
Very well. Thank you, Chantel. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us on.
My pleasure. So just to give a little bit of background to our listeners, I did the introduction. I told them about Nuzest, and they're familiar with it because I share it on my social media, and also I have it on the introduction of all the podcasts. But I would love to go into the story. Like, one of the reasons I really was keen to have you on is that this is not just another brand that was like, oh, let's just create a protein powder or a supplement. It's actually, there's a story behind it. So I love to go deep into why the idea of Nuzest came by, even the name. Why did you really want to create an amazing brand? And also, what's your background?
Okay.
Whoever wants to start first.
Well, let's talk about how we started. So that can be Monique.
So back in 2004, 2005, so coming up 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I was in my early 20s at the time. There were not a lot of treatment options on the market. While I had relapsing remitting MS, which is the first stage, the treatment options were limited, and all they did was try to lessen the severity of the relapses. So basically the prognosis that I was given at the time was you will probably be in a wheelchair by the time you're 30. And that's just life. So we started talking, Dad actually started talking to a lot of specialists saying, look, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to be my daughter's life. And so I started talking to specialists all over the world. We traveled around. We spoke to everything from traditional doctors and neurologists to nutritionists, naturopaths, some pretty questionable health experts around the world. And look, the advice we got was broad and varied, but the one thing that everyone kept coming back to was the importance of nutrition, not just for people who have got a chronic illness like MS, but for anybody, really. If you don't have your nutrition right, nothing else is going to fall into place. And so Dad started looking for products that were going to not fix me, but help me and improve my quality of life. And you can take it from here because that goes into your career.
Okay, yeah. So I got involved with a couple of brands and some companies and delved more and more into this. I sold out of the business that I was in, mainly to help Monique on this journey. And eventually we decided to make our own, using the advice of many of the people we had met on this journey to create a multi-nutrient that would be a good supplement to make sure that Monique and anyone like her was able to boost their intake of micronutrients in particular because of the quality of the food these days and the fact that we lead a stressed lifestyle and people don't eat that well, that there's always gaps in the diet. So, and there were lots of products out there. Some of them were good, some of them were not so good. I just wanted something that would cover all the bases as best possible. And so
it was easy.
Something that was easy to use. So
there was one point where I was taking, I think 50 different tablets a day at least to try and get all of these nutrients that they said would support my myelin sheath, my energy production, my brain health. I was taking vitamin B and B12 and enzymes and probiotics, and it was too much.
We used to go to the US and we went to a clinic over there several times where Monique would spend several weeks at a time and we'd stay locally at a motel and then go into the clinic each day. And then we'd come back to Australia literally with a suitcase full of tablets. And it all got too hard. So
it's exhausting. And it's, for someone that does have an illness like MS, it's a constant reminder that you're sick.
You've got all these tablets everywhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how we started. And, there was no intention to actually commence a business as such, but I had friends who said, I'd like to, let's create a brand and sell this. So that's what we ended up doing. We created a brand and sold it. We happened to know of a plant-based protein that was out there, a good protein that we'd sourced out of Europe, out of a company called Casukra. They're based in Belgium. And they were regarded, and I think still are, as the leaders in pea protein isolation, so that we created a nice plant-based flavoured protein as well to go with the green. So you got some of your macronutrients as well as your micros, and that's how it all started. And then people started wanting to sell it everywhere. So now we've got...
It was only supposed to be a small business. We thought we'd just, sell to a couple of distributors, and, it could be... at the time when we started, I still had... my previous business, I had a health clinic that I was still running 7 days a week because we thought Nuzest would be a nice side hustle. But then, suddenly someone wanted to sell it in Hong Kong, and someone wanted to sell it in New Zealand and
the UK. So now now we're selling it in lots of different places around the world. And, we're still not a huge company. It sounds as though it's big because we've got this global footprint. It's a reasonable size, and I guess we employ about 40 people around the world. Plus we have independent distributors as well. So, that's where we are today, and we've expanded the product range, and here we are.
So which one was your first product that you came up with?
It was Good Green Vitality, the multi-nutrient.
It's my favorite.
Which was called Good Green stuff, yeah.
The way I actually share it, and that's my favorite, everybody that listens to me knows, but the way I share it is like, this is a complement to your lifestyle and your diet because it has everything you need. So if you don't want to if you don't want to have a million tablets, you can take this, and it literally covers all the bases, especially if you are plant-based, which is great, right?
Yeah.
And the way we say it is it fills the gaps in your diet.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace anything. Yeah. It's just, not everybody isn't going to eat perfectly every day. Whether they, can't because of food supply or dietary intolerances, or just, sometimes we get lazy, we skip meals.
Yeah. So we try and encourage people to eat good meals, to eat the rainbow, to eat plenty of fruit and vegetables, and to exercise and get their sleep and all of those other things that help with a balanced life that can upset your immune system and lead to diabolical consequences for some people.
Absolutely.
So that's the main thing. And also it's not therapeutic, so nothing in there is in therapeutic levels. It's the synergistic effect of all of those things combined where you're putting it into your body at once that gives it the efficacy.
Yeah, exactly. So Monique, if I can go to you for a second, obviously you've been living with this for a long time. You look amazing. You were just at the gym, so you're not in a wheelchair.
He has good genes.
So I'd love to know what you felt when you started taking your own brand, when you started producing it, when you started actually living this lifestyle, and also the biggest changes that you have made that contributed to even formulating the range that you have, because it's quite wide and it's got a lot of different flavors, and now you're coming up with different combinations that support different parts of different organs, I should say, like skin, gut. So if you can just take me through the process of how it affected you and how it inspired you to create more, because I'm sure you are the person behind the ideas probably.
Well, to be honest, our products are about improving your baseline nutrition, right? So they're not about, you don't feel the difference on a day-to-day basis. When you feel the difference with our products, and I do especially, is I take them every single day. If I forget for a couple of days, that's when I start to notice, because I'm used to feeling like this and all of a sudden I drop back down to here.
Yep.
So for me, I'm still medicated with my MS. That's, I have pretty aggressive MS according to my neurologist. So I do need conventional medicine. But what I've found by keeping my baseline health really good is when I have relapses, I manage to recover. So a lot of people in my boat, and I think a lot of the reason that first neurologist told me I would be in a wheelchair by 30 is the effects of MS and all the relapses typically compound, and eventually they slow the body down so much that you go into the second phase, which is progressive MS. I've managed to keep that at bay because I've kept my baseline health up. You know, I have a relapse. I've had some horrific relapses. I've gone blind. I've not been able to walk. I've had it all, but I've recovered, and I live a really healthy, active lifestyle. And I think a lot of that is to do, I mean, obviously there's lifestyle factors involved. I keep fit. I try to prioritize my sleep and stress reduction, but nutrition and our supplements.
It's hard with the 5-year-old, by the way.
Yeah, the 5-year-old
you're a baby.
who does not believe in sleep at all.
Nope, you're super mommy. You're super mommy.
Sleep is not important to her. But our products, I mean, particularly all through my pregnancy and breastfeeding and, you know, raising this 5-year-old, having that nutritional support was key. And so our products, back to why we started formulating more specific targeted products, is we've found that, you know,
market demand.
People are looking for that.
Yeah. People are wanting, say, you know, they're wanting their protein, but they're wanting something specifically for gut health. So the baseline is good green vitality, but if you also want to focus a bit more on your gut health or on your immunity, then we've got these other products. And we've made them with protein because what people, I guess many people don't understand the importance of protein. They relate it to muscle growth and repair and recovery, whereas we know it's, you know, it's a part of every cell in your body, and it has a lot of other functions apart from that. And it's really, really important to gut health and to immunity and to your bones and to your energy production and all of those things. So we've included protein in it because it's an important part of immunity, or it's an important part of gut health. Your gut lining, you know, it's amino acids, proteins. So that's why we've made it with the protein, but we've specifically put these additional ingredients specific for immunity or specific for gut health or for hair, skin and nails, so that people can have that extra boost for those particular areas.
Yeah. And we've asked our customers, you know, we've surveyed them and we've said, what are you looking for? What do you take our products for now? And there's some really key areas of health that our customer base are looking for. Hair, skin and nails is definitely one of them. That's glowing all over as that's my new favorite. But I mean, immunity is huge. Digestive support is huge. And because Good Green Vitality doesn't contain anything at a therapeutic dose, it's great for that baseline nutritional support and to help fill all the gaps. But sometimes if you want to focus on one particular area of health, you do need a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what was, you know, this foray into more targeted therapeutic style products has been interesting for us.
Yeah, you have one specific for the gut and it's different from the others.
In a biome blend?
Yeah, biome blend, yeah. Can you just take me through that? Because that's a very important one. One, because gut health is something we discuss all the time. It has an impact on the brain, on the skin, on everything that you cover in other products too. And especially, you know, I guess in your case, we're talking about the gut-brain axis, and that's really, really important. And immunity is right behind, like 70% of our immune system is behind the gut wall, which is like one cell thick. So it's really, really key to keep it healthy. But this product is a little different than the others. So if you can take me through it.
Yeah, it's a fermented product that was developed in Denmark, and it's been in like 20 years in development. So it was available a long, long time ago. And originally the founder of that, or the discoverer of that particular process, was someone who was a founder of the organic movement in Scandinavia, and Denmark in particular. And originally it was for the soil. It was like the microbiome of the soil. And with the help and advice of other experts in the world, including a famous Japanese man whose name I forget right now, they then developed this for the human body. Now, the difference in it is that it's a fermented product, And in the fermentation, where they add all the herbs, there's 19 different herbs that are used in Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine for gut health in particular. So we've added that, and as well as the probiotics. But what happens during the fermentation process is that the pH is brought down to about 3.5, so a very acidic environment. And what that does is it makes the probiotics that are in there very resilient. So they then can pass through the acid of our stomach and into the intestine as very, very resilient microbes that can multiply easily, because it's like the survival of the fittest. So what you're putting in there are the fit ones. They get through. But also you're getting the benefit of the probiotics and the digestive process right from the start of the digestive system. So unlike a tablet which you swallow, this is a liquid which you're drinking. So you're getting it where you start your digestive process in your mouth, in your esophagus, in your stomach, and into your intestine. So you're getting the benefit of this all the way through. So there's a couple of different unique points about this particular product. So it's a bit like the kombucha story in a way, except it's got a lot that's very, very targeted from a gut health point of view. Some of the kombuchas, I'm not sure of the efficacy of kombucha in terms of gut health, but it's not made specifically for that, or to the degree that this product is. So, it's proving to be very, very successful. It's very popular. A lot of people are enjoying taking it and feeling the benefits. So we're very happy with it.
That's great. Very good thinking and a different strategy. There's so many products out there. Sometimes it's really hard from a consumer's point of view to know which ones to choose, especially when it comes to probiotics now. So it's good to have a different option, or being able to consider the different approaches that you can have with your gut. And again, I think as Monique has mentioned before, this is not, you don't have a silver bullet for anything. Like, it's all about combining different elements and making sure your lifestyle and your nutrition in general are conducive to health. So people have to take responsibility for that. It's just that the reality is, in this world, we do need a little bit of help, because we are under attack all the time with all the products that we put on our skin and the air we breathe and you name it.
It is confusing. I know it's confusing for your average consumer. And I in particular didn't come from this background, neither of us did. I was a naval officer, by the way, in my first career. And then I was in commercial property and the childcare business. So like, everything's far away from this, but we've learned a lot over the last 12 years or so. Plus, we've used a lot of outside help to help us. But now that I've been in the industry all of this time and can read a label and understand the different forms of ingredients and whether they're good or bad or whatever, it's the mind. I'd cringe to try and understand some of these products that are on the shelf, but to what's good and what's bad and what should you be taking. And there's just every day there's more and more brands coming on the market. It seems there's no barrier to entry.
And the claims on labels, that people say, and it's the way they do it. Then they're not blatantly lying. They're just finding loopholes that deceive the consumer into thinking that what they're taking is healthy when it's just not.
It's getting a label claim, a high label claim for a mineral, but using a form that's not very absorbable, but it happens to be cheap and you can get the label claim, things like that. But also there's a lot of innocent claims as well. People come into this industry. They're usually the small ones start off and they do their labels and they make their claims. They don't know what the regulations are, and out they come. It's a minefield, and a lot of them, they don't get caught because you're under the radar. The big firms start getting looked at with their claims, of course, and they're the ones that are very clever with their claims because they've got the legal advice. But it's a minefield. the regulatory environment's a minefield. Yeah.
We actually had our nutritionists put together a guide to understanding nutrition labels in all the different countries on our website, because customers just so often were asking us questions. They're like, why does this say salt and this says sodium? And it's like, well, one's a UK and one's an Australian, and it's, you know, different regulations. So that we got them to put together a guide to try and help customers, because it's just so confusing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because you have a global footprint. How do you navigate the different language? So you have to have somebody that looks at the local requirements, the language that is used in countries, so that your labels are specific to that region.
We have labels for the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand specific labels, Arabics for the UAE specific labels, and then we also have German translation.
Yeah, we're starting to get into EU country specific labels.
So you can buy our products with English labels online in Europe. Using the internet, but to sell in a store in Europe, or even to sell in an Amazon store in Europe, you've got to comply with local regulations and have your products registered, etc. It's getting quite difficult.
But so we have an in-house quality and regulatory manager who she is very skilled in what's happening in the regulatory environment in all of our core sales regions. But then we use regulatory lawyers and consultants in each country to.
Yeah, we get regulatory advice. So we'll have. In the US, in fact, there are lawyers in the US and in the UK, but experienced regulatory advisors to help us with our labels to make sure that they're compliant.
That's good. Yeah, it's good. It's good because, again, we can get access to products that are from many different places, but it's true that sometimes things can get very confusing. But also, I one thing I really like and appreciate about Nuzest is, aside from the quality, honestly, I've tried many different protein powder. The Good Green Vitality is my favorite product in general, because, as I said, it's like a brilliant supplement and also tastes great. But I've noticed some differences. Like, one is a lot of the product, like protein powders that are flavored, have a very strong stevia taste, or they have sugar in it. Yours has very little stevia, but it doesn't have that aftertaste, and I don't know how you manage that, but it's really, really well done.
There are forms of stevia out there now that don't have the We don't use a masker, so that's what we use good quality stevia that's available now, where you don't get an aftertaste. Europe's the only place we use stevia, because we use contemporary fruit extract, it's called formatin. But it's a protein extract which is sweet like stevia leaf, and we use that everywhere else in the world. Unfortunately, in Europe, you can only use it in certain amounts in certain circumstances. So we have some products in Europe using formatin and not stevia, but the bulk of our protein still uses stevia. We used to use formatin until we were told we weren't allowed.
Okay.
Why? I don't know.
I'm not sure,
But we also don't need to use a lot of sweetener in our product, because the pea protein itself doesn't have a very strong flavor.
Yeah. And this is the other thing. You have different flavors. Like, there is the berry ones, there is vanilla, but you clearly don't use artificial sweeteners flavoring, because the taste is not, in your face, like a very artificial. It's actually very natural. In fact, if you don't pay attention to the taste, you wouldn't even know that there is a hint of vanilla, or there is the berry background, which was different for me, because I was like, wow, I've used other brands, and when they, the flavors that they have, and they don't just have the plain vanilla or chocolate or berry, they actually have, the birthday cake and the spearmint freshener, all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, how do you create it?
The key for the protein, though, is that if you've got a very, very good quality pea protein isolate, you shouldn't have much smell, you shouldn't have much grittiness, so you don't need to use a whole lot of other things to give it a good mouthfeel or to make it taste good. So we don't need to add a whole lot of stuff to do that. We could go and buy $2.30 a kilo protein out of China, and get something to the market with a lot less cost, but we'd have to put a lot of stuff in it to make it taste good. But we don't do that.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Pea protein gets a bit of a bad rap because the quality is so vastly different.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that your pea protein is actually good quality then?
Oh, we get it from, it's where we get it from. So from one supplier in Belgium, Cassucra, European supplier. It's all grown in northern France. Oops, we've lost you. Can you hear us? But we can't hear you.
No, I can hear you. I'm sorry, I'm looking like I'm talking.
Right,
I'm listening as well. 1 second.
Sorry. Yeah, so no, we've all, from the very start, we have managed to get our product out of Belgium. We've used the same protein. They're very, very strict about who they get to grow it. They're contract growers. They supply them with the seeds. It's all grown in the same place. It all gets barged to their facility across the border in Belgium. They use a water-based process for isolation. They purify all the water that's used and recycle it. All of the waste goes to biofuel or animal feed, so it's a very sustainable
quality at
place.
every point.
Yeah, quality is
and
there.
the result in all of that care and attention is the protein that it produces is fine, doesn't have a big taste or smell, very fine particle size, mixes really smoothly.
So it's just where you get it from. So we don't get it from a whole lot of different places. We just use the one source. They're reliable, they're proven, they're good quality, family-owned company for many, many years, so we trust them.
That's really good. And in terms of, again, what the way that you formulate the different flavors, are they different in different regions, or is it the same products, just the labels changing and some
we blend in different regions. So for the UK and Europe, we blend there. For the USA, we blend in the USA, and for Australia, New Zealand, we blend here. Each of those contract manufacturers will use their own flavor houses, but sometimes we will specify for exactly what to use, and sometimes we'll just specify it must be natural vanilla flavor or natural strawberry flavor. And then they send us the specs of what they use and we approve them.
It's basically the same recipe, but based on their own suppliers. There's slight variations.
There'll be some slight variations in taste, but not much.
Okay. And how do you navigate the US though? Because I feel like in the US, this is one problem that has come up a lot. And if you listen to the latest sharing at Congress, it was like, the US seems to have the same products, even the same brands that have products in Europe and the US. And in the US, somehow they end up with 10 times more ingredients that are not necessary, but also not good quality. And I know that you wouldn't compromise on that, I'm not saying, but how do you navigate the local suppliers, because they have shortcuts, right? So how do you make sure that the people that are blending in the US for you are actually doing a good job and not taking shortcuts?
You look at all their certifications. We audit them. So we have in our team here he's a trained industrial chemist from Germany. He's been in the industry for over 20 years. He knows manufacturing and ingredients like the back of his hand. And if we're setting up an agreement with a contract manufacturer anywhere in the world, he flies there and he audits them. So he goes to the factory, he audits their processes, all of their certifications, and so forth. And so that's how you make sure. And also we test. I mean, they test and we test. So when the product is finished, we test for gluten, we test for microbial content, a whole range of tests that we carry out to make sure that the quality is there.
We test independently as well. So that's just another safeguard to make sure that the quality is there when we're using contract manufacturers.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, it does have that. Definitely add that on. It's good because I feel like when we're sharing with our audience, I have a great experience with Nuzest in Europe, and I endorse it without even blinking because I've seen all the ingredients, I've tasted it. I actually do feel the difference when I take it. But of course, sometimes in different regions, it can be a little bit tough. And my audience is also, it's mostly American based, actually, UK and US. So it's like, I want to make sure they do get the best. And so it's really reassuring for them to know.
Yeah, there are very good manufacturers. I mean, all of your larger manufacturers, your medium and larger manufacturers in the US are all pretty good. They can't afford not to be, really, but you're right. There's a lot of manufacturers there. And in recent years, the FDA have been more strict in terms of getting around and auditing these companies. But I know when I started, there were some horror stories, but I think it's getting a lot better over there.
Maybe with the small companies, but it seems like the giants get away with murder, really. And that's the problem, I think. And this is why people get...
I don't know. I think the giant companies, they can't afford to actually transgress regulations and do the wrong thing. Because they're the ones that are on the radar, and people come down on... Look, they might get away with not using the best ingredients, for example, but they're not trying to hide it. You've got to know how to label.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
I guess US labeling is a little tricky, though. US labeling does, just by the FDA standards, it does mask a lot of things.
Yeah, and that I was going to say, unfortunately.
Ingredients that you can't declare on the label, even though they're in the product. So it's...
Yeah. And this is the thing, the other problem with the US is that revolving door between industry and FDA, right? So the US is a very, very different...
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complex.
Our product is simple, so that makes it a lot easier,
Yeah, exactly.
Everything that's in the product is on the label. Everything that's on the label is in the product.
Yeah, exactly. You see, it's exactly what's on the tin. I love that. Okay, I am going to reverse back to the beginning of the conversation where I asked your story, Monique. I realized this is probably something I should have asked at the beginning, but I think a lot of people are familiar with the word or the name MS, right, for a diagnosis, but they don't necessarily understand what it is exactly. Can we give them a little synopsis of what it looks like to actually live with it, what it is? First of all, we know it's a neurological disease, but also, like, how does it manifest, and how can people really thrive on it? Because, like you are, I had a neighbor in Mauritius that was told actually she would be in a wheelchair, and also that she would never have children. I didn't know you had a 5 years old, but you obviously, also proven that actually with your right lifestyle and nutrition, you can absolutely be fantastic and making children and having them, and it's not a problem. And that was the case for her too. And she actually went fully plant-based when she found out that she had MS. So, I love to actually describe to people what it is and not to be afraid of it, because a lot of the times we have diseases are named that we get freaked out, like cancer. Everybody's scared of cancer. Parkinson's, everybody's afraid of Parkinson's. And I know that they definitely affect our lifestyle. And I have clients that unfortunately are affected by it. But as you have proven, as many others have, that really take care of themselves, there is a way around it. You can live a good quality life. And that's really, really important. So if you just give me, can we explain to people?
In a nutshell, MS is an autoimmune disease, and it affects the central nervous system, so the brain and central nervous system. What it does is your immune cells attack the myelin sheath, which is the fatty sheath that surrounds all of your nerves. And it's basically like, if you think of an electrical wire that's got its wrapping, the wrapping breaks, and if the wire breaks, the circuit or the message can't get through the wire properly. So it's kind of how your brain works. So your nerves are transmitting signals from your brain to, whether it's sensory or cognitive or any function in your body, and those wires get short-circuited. So what happens is you have what they call a relapse, and because your nervous system controls everything, it controls all of your senses, your sight, smell, touch, breathing, mobility. So MS is, it's a completely random disease, and it can manifest completely differently from one person to another. And your relapses can be anything. I mean, it can be anything from pins and needles to not being able to feel anything from the waist down. So any of your senses can be affected. And I mean, cognitive function and memory, I'm finding less publicly available information about it, but the more I talk to my neurologist, the more he explains, there's the cognitive impairment is something that happens over time. Basically, most people would start in a relapsing remitting, which means you have an attack, but your body recovers. And it's a little bit like, I guess if you have a road and a detour, right, you'll still get from A to B, but it might take you a little bit longer. So that's the way the nervous signals are getting from your brain to the rest of your body. There's a detour, it takes a little bit longer. And the damage happens when you have multiple detours. Because one detour, your brain, you've got neuroplasticity, your brain, like I said, I went blind, I can see. So only in one eye, not both. But I can see out of both of my eyes. That's because, the nerve's never repaired, but my brain found another way to make that same function happen. But the more detours that your brain has to take, the more it slows you down. So I find things, heat traditionally slows down your nervous function. So for people with MS, heat can be quite traumatic at times because everything slows down. Don't know where I was going with this. Yeah, so when most of the medications are for the first phase of MS, which is your relapsing remitting, and they're all designed to try and stop the relapses, stop your nervous system from attacking your brain so that you don't ever get into that progressive phase of MS. And when I was first diagnosed, there were the only medications really were interferons, which I did about 3 different interferons, everything from, a daily injection to a weekly injection to monthly. I think one of them, the side effects were horrendous. The weekly one would have me basically in bed with flu-like symptoms, so fever, shivering, headache, can't get out of bed for 1.5 days out of 7 every week. But there's been so much research now in MS. Back when I was diagnosed 20 years ago, I didn't know very many people with MS. I mean, you didn't hear a lot about it, but it's becoming a lot more prevalent, and whether that's more people being diagnosed or, they don't know what the cause is, so they can't find a cure basically until they figure out what the cause is. But there's definitely more people around the world being diagnosed, and because of that, there's a lot more awareness, and because of the awareness, there's a lot more funding going into medical research. So we work really closely with the MS Research Organisation in Australia, who have come into our office and told us that there will be a cure in my lifetime. So still waiting, and that was 4 years ago that they came in and said?
Yeah.
They were saying, tentatively, hopefully, maybe in the next decade. So, I think it's literally a case of any year now, they're going to find, if not a cure, a way to stop it in its tracks.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, for all of those affected, you just have to keep looking after your baseline health, because you're going to have those relapses, and you need to make sure that your body is equipped to fully recover. So that if the next one hits, you're not starting from a low base.
Yeah.
And it's not just nutrition, it is the exercise, it is the relaxation, it's all of those things combined. And that's true for all autoimmune disease or any chronic disease, as we all know.
Stress is one of the biggest triggers for anyone, any autoimmune condition. People will, you speak to anybody and they will say stress is that's their red flag.
Yeah.
And stress is all around us. These days you can't avoid it.
Exactly. I had one of my clients who had to literally manage to do it, which is great, but change her lifestyle completely by asking her, she had to leave her job, but she found a job where they're accommodating her to have an extra day off a week. And if she has attacks, or relapses, she can take off and have the time to recover without having to justify it. They understand what's going on. And when she is in a good place, she's a high performer. But they allow her to decompress when she needs to, when she feels that there's too much stress and it's triggering her. So it's good.
So we should all be living in Mauritius.
She's not in Mauritius anymore. That's not the same person. That wasn't my client. That was my neighbor at the time. That was a long time ago that was the first person I met with MS and I didn't even know what it was. This is other people. And as you said, it's more and more. I'm meeting so many. But autoimmune is going up, especially in women. And I know it's got a lot to do also with our hormones. So, and I specialize on women's hormones. So it's definitely something that I'm seeing more, which is interesting. So yeah, even though medicine is necessary, and I am really glad that we have the technology that we have now to deal with it, I always will go back to, as you said, Monique, the baseline of your health is your responsibility at the end of the day, right?
But I think, if you can have the two working together,
exactly, it's better. Yeah. No, in this case, what I'm saying is that you can't get away without it, but without the meds. But if you don't, if you're not healthy, you're going to.
I also, I couldn't do the medicine without the nutrition, but I probably couldn't just do nutrition without the medicine as well.
Yeah. That's for something like this. Absolutely agree. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much again for creating such a great product. I truly love it. I don't endorse many products. I very selectively do so because I do care what we put in our bodies. And if I don't take it myself, I will never tell people to. So I'm very, very glad that we connected. Your story is being inspiring. And I think it just gives hope to people that we can be healthy, and does actually reiterate that we are the pilots really of our bodies, and we have to take responsibility for which direction we choose to go. And as in your case, like, yes, we can use modern medicine. It's fabulous. It's fantastic. We're so glad that we have it. But ultimately, everything you do every day that counts, right? It piles up to the results. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us on.
And thank you for your support, Chantal. Really appreciate it. And nice
Anytime.
meeting.
You too. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Trevor and Monique, and thank you everyone for staying on to the episode. Today's episode was sponsored by Nuzest, so if you want to know more about them, go into the show notes and check out all the details. Also, special discount for a limited time of 20%, so make sure you grab it because this will give you the chance to really save big. Normally my discount code is 15, so take advantage of the extra 5 and stock up, especially if you want to try the Good Green Vitality because it's my favorite product. Alright guys, I will see you next week, so make sure that you put your reviews on any platform you're listening to this on because it really helps me grow and invite more and more amazing people. Bye!